We're here in London speaking about the global crisis with Jim Rogers. Hello, Jim.
Delighted to be here, Howard.
Glad to have you. Jim, we're about a year at least into this global financial crisis. What do you see coming?
Well, it's going to get worse. The markets may rally for a while. I've covered a lot of shorts. I hope they rally for a while. But the financial crisis is not over. The economic crisis is not over. You know, markets hit bottom before economies do. That's probably going to happen again. But I think there's going to be a new decline in the stock market next year or 2010, and the economy's worse.
So why don't you think the crisis is over? What do you see ahead?
More bankruptcies. I mean, people still use phony accounting. Most of the financial institutions in the West certainly use still phony accounting. They haven't admitted their losses. They haven't marked to market, if you will. And there are more margin calls, more credit lines being pulled, etc.
So do you see it in hitting the major banks, the hedge funds, all of the above?
All of the above, and the real economy. It's working its way through to the real economy now. People have drilling rigs on lease that need to be refurbished, but they cannot get credit lines to refurbish the drilling rigs. That's the real economy. Everybody knows that drilling rigs are necessary and they need them for the oil companies. Doesn't matter.
So what about, we've seen unemployment rising rapidly in the U.S., the U.K., and countries going into negative GDP growth. How long do you see this recession continuing, and how deep do you think it'll get?
Well, Howard, it's going to be the worst since the Second World War in the West, and if politicians keep making mistakes, it's going to be a very long and drawn-out affair. Remember, the Japanese called the 1990s the lost decade. We could well have a lost decade, too, if we keep these clowns in Washington and keep making mistakes.
What kind of mistakes do you think they're making?
Well, they keep printing money. They keep propping up failed and failing companies, instead of letting people get washed out and letting the system start over. They hope that they can put on Band-Aids and everything will be okay. But we're talking about a cancer patient, Howard. We're not talking about an arm cut.
So they should let major banks fail?
Absolutely. They should have let everybody fail. But it should have, Greenspan was the one who started it all. For the last 10 or 15 years, Greenspan would not let anybody fail. His friends would call him up and say, save me, save me, save me. He kept doing it. If he had let long-term capital management fail in 1998, we would have none of these problems now, I assure you.
So how low do you think the stock market could go in the U.S.?
I'm not that smart, Howard. I wish I were. There are probably people at your shows who can tell you that exactly. I'm not one of them. I just have to watch it, month by month and try to figure out when it's time to cover and when it's time to sell more.
Are you heavily in cash now?
I have a fair amount of cash, but I've been buying since October when I covered. I've been buying China, I've been buying Taiwan, I've been buying more commodities. No, I've been adding to my long positions here in the last month.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We've been speaking with Jim Rogers on the MoneyShow.com video network.